Hello everyone and welcome to a kind of a casual video. Don't expect too much from this, but this is me being a little chuffed with myself for reorganizing my Pokemon home boxes. And I figure, I kind of want to make a record of my intentions for myself to refer back to, but also you might find it interesting to just see what I've got stashed away in my Pokemon home. What I will say right off the bat is keep your expectations low. I have not sunk thousands of hours into Pokemon titles as some have. I haven't done a whole ton of shiny hunting or anything like that. I do have some fun event Pokemon to show you, although I think I might have shown them off in another video. But the main purpose of this video is to just kind of go over the philosophy of like organizing a Pokemon home, because I realized in the back of my head, whenever I thought about my Pokemon home account, I always just kind of felt ugh. Because my initial thing, what I did originally, is I organised it in the order of a national dex. My first box was to sort, which is what this is. Which is always good to have that as your first box, I feel like. Just for ease of use, without having to worry about keeping everything sorted all of the time. I do that in the games as well. But then I basically had like 1 to 30, 31 to 60, 60, so on. And I do this in the games as well. I think that's probably still a fun thing to do in the games themselves. But when it came to Pokemon Home, I was quickly finding that I was running into issues where, first of all, it didn't account for doubles. So, for instance, how many games give you a Bulbasaur? Or, in how many games can you catch it or find a Bulbasaur in some way? I only had one space for a number 1 Pokemon. So I didn't know what to do with that. I actually had a box called Doubles, which is now kaput. It's gone. We don't need it anymore. Another problem with sorting things by national dex was just, it was kind of boring, honestly, and it made my Pokemon home boxes feel cluttered and weirdly empty. I've never really completed a Pokedex. I want to, so the idea was going to be cobble together a national dex from Pokemon of various regions, but just in my mind, whenever I would consider, like, the feel, I guess, the aura, the vibe of my Pokemon home boxes, instead of feeling like, oh, I've got, like 1 to 30 covered, it would be, I've got 1 to 30 covered, but it feels really messy because I know some of them come from Pokemon X and some of them come from Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and so on and so forth. And I realized that what I really wanted to do, I'm finally arriving at the point, was to sort them by region. And so, for the record, because I know I'm going to forget this in the future, the priority for me sorting Pokemon is, first of all, is it an event Pokemon? Has it been given to me via mystery gift? Yes or no? If yes, go to events. So event normals and event legends. I should probably rename this. We used to call them event Pokemon, as in like it's an event that you go to get a Pokemon from Game Freak. But now that you just download it via mystery gift, it's not too eventy, and now when you say like event Pokemon, I feel like most people probably think of like there's an event on where you can capture a Mighty Mark Sceptile or something. So yeah, I should probably rename these. But yeah, here's the other thing about what I'm showing you today. A lot of these are on loan to Scarlet and Violet right now, so this is not my full Event Legends collection, but I'll come back to this in a minute. But yeah, what I basically decided to do, and I know everyone's going to have their own, like, oh, I do this, I do that, this sorting system is inferior because you haven't accounted for this or whatever. I've just spent ages organizing them in this way, so kindly refrain. But the way I want to do it is by region and game. So here we have black, white, black 2, and white 2, and you might wonder, why is this so sparse? That's because all of these have been traded. All of my Pokemon from Gen 5 backwards are stuck on the DS because I've never finished Pokemon Black. I don't gel with Gen 5 and I've never been able to bring myself to finish that game, and so I've not been able to trade them forwards. So that's why this is like this. If I ever change that, I will go back and, make appropriate folders for the previous games, and assuming that the Pokemon say which games they come from. I mean, I'm sure I'll be able to go in and see Sinnoh or whatever. But yeah, that's why these are the way that they are here. But the party really begins when we get to X, Y, and Oras. And you'll notice I haven't left gaps. For instance, there's no gap for a Bulbasaur before the Ivysaur. And that's a conscious decision I've made specifically for the 3DS titles, because realistically speaking, I'm not planning to go back and get the national decks done of the X and Y titles, you know what I mean? So this is just like, these are all of my X and Y, and, well, specifically, these are all my Pokemon X and Pokemon Alpha Sapphire Pokemon here. We've got my original Blade, who evolved from my original Chespin. You can see my original trainer ID down there, Crazy K. It's what I used to go by. My original Xerneas as well. You can see it's level 60. I used a Master Ball on it. Oh boy. I sure did like to make use of my Master Ball. This is Reese's Kecleon, funnily enough. I don't know why I have Reese's Kecleon, but I do. Reese of Dimension Jam fame, that is, who appears on the channel pretty often. And yeah, there's some fun stuff here. This is my Blaziken from my first attempt at Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. I actually transferred them to Bank and then reset my progress in that game. And I've not finished that game yet. Maybe I'll go back and finish that game and transfer them forwards, and then I'll have more Pokemon here. But yeah, oh yeah, this is my Tyrantrum. I feel a great affinity for Tyrant, and I believe this was my original Tyrant, although it doesn't have a nickname, so that's kind of interesting, but maybe I didn't think I was going to grow as attached to him as I did. I do have a spare Froakie. I tried to keep this in order of national decks, if not having spaces between them, but as the sorting went, I found some Pokemon that I didn't account for originally, so I could always do some more sorting, I suppose, but for now, this is how it be. And then I do want to do, going forwards, I want to do the national decks thing, I think, for each region. So, you know, I was never going to finish the living dex, and now I'm like, I want to do a living dex for each region. So, like, for instance, if I was going to do a living dex for Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, it would only be 151 long, right? There would be no point making spaces for the other 1,000 Pokemon or whatever, because they're not available in that game. Pretty obvious logic, but you carry that forwards to Pokemon. For instance, all the Pokemon available in Legends Arceus, or all the Pokemon available in, you know, Sword or something. That would be a fun thing to do at some point. However, that does sound like a giant project. So for now, I'm doing the 3DS thing for these games as well, and I'm not bothering with the national dex numbering and the spacing out for the different Pokemon. But yeah, here's all the Pokemon I've transferred forwards from Let's Go. I don't think I have anything too crazy here that I got crazy attached to. I think anything that I was crazy attached to probably remains in the save file, and that's going to be the major problem here. Because I do have my Sword and Shield Pokemon here as well. But Sword and Shield is still a game I want to actively play. I want to do Dynamax raids when I feel like it. And so I want to have my boxes fairly full of dudes to choose from. So these are pretty much like the, yeah, I got this one, throw it in my boxes kind of a deal. And that's why they're here. And that's why Legends Arceus, Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, Legends CA, and Scarlet and Violet, and Fire Red and Leaf Green, even though that's not got support yet, they're all empty as well, apart from this random Cyndaquil. And, you know, it's not going to stay that way forever, but it's the way it's going to be for now. When I feel like I've fully seen everything there is to see in these games and done everything there is to do in these games, then I'll transfer them over. But, you know, Pokemon Home's really nice for having a reserve of your Pokemon that you've caught over the years, but at least until Pokemon Champions is out, it really is kind of like an archive more than anything, so it's kind of difficult to choose when you're going to move Pokemon over to here, and I don't really want them to languish here forever. For instance, it would be cool to get some of my Pokemon X and Pokemon Alpha Sapphire dudes in Scarlet and Violet to do some Terra raids or something, so you know, I'll have gaps left here, just like I have gaps left over here, and they'll be on loan, and then they can come back and stuff. I wish they would have a feature where, for instance, if I transferred Shell Shock to Pokemon Violet, like, you know how in RuneScape, when you take something out of your bank, you have an option to leave a kind of, like, placeholder version of it, and it'll be, like, a translucent version of the item? I wish you could do that for Pokemon in Home. That would be so nice, but you can't do that. There you go, Nintendo, there's a feature request. Anyway, another thing I'm doing is I'm gonna do basically my philosophy for, like, the regional Pokemon here. I'm also going to do for shinies. I want to get into shiny hunting at some point. So for instance, you'll see Legends Arceus Shinies 1. The Ponyta isn't anything special because it's actually like a scripted kind of side quest thing. But I do want to, like, for instance, I want to distinguish where I get my shinies from, because for instance, while I would never shame anyone for being excited about a shiny in Pokemon Legends ZA or anything, it's definitely a lot easier to get a shiny in Legends ZA than it is in Fire Red and Leaf Green, for instance. So I think it could be quite gratifying to be like, oh yeah, I've got a shiny Ponyta from Legends Arceus, and that's nothing all that special because it was scripted. But I also have a shiny Ponyta from like Fire Red or something, and then that's in a different box. So while I'm aware that this information is on the Pokemon summaries, it would be nice to also just have it quickly, you know, visually there as far as like being available in Pokemon Home goes. One last thing before we get into what I've got in my Event Legends box, but also, like, I haven't renamed a bunch of these, like, you can see, it would take ages to rename them all, and I'm kind of lazy, but I've mostly left untouched, you know what I was saying about having the National Dex numbering system in place? I was already doing this for Pokemon Go, and so this kind of already fits into the way I want to do this now going forwards. So yeah, I actually don't know if there's enough boxes in Pokemon Home to account for like a National Dex worth of boxes for every single game that currently exists. That might be worth worrying about, but realistically speaking, that's not going to be a problem for a very long time for me. But yeah, Pokemon Go, it's kind of cool to have all that. And then I have my Pokemon Go shinies as well, which I previously had in a box by themselves as well. Something weird I noticed, by the way, some of my Pokemon Go Pokemon don't have the Pokemon Go stamp of shame on them, and I don't know if that's just because I transferred them or acquired them early enough that it wasn't part of their DNA, but like they have the Go stamp of shame on this screen, but not on this screen, so I don't know what the deal with that is. If anyone knows, let me know. But okay, here's what I've been promising you all this time, some of my interesting event Pokemon, or I guess we should call them mystery gift Pokemon. I've got this level 100 Mew from Game Freak, and this is all XY. You can see in the icon down next to the language there in the bottom right of the screen. So we've got this level 100 Mew, level 100 Celebi, level 100 Celebi, and this is because I owned both Pokemon X and Alpha Sapphire, so I was able to double up on some of these. And they were doing this thing for a year where they were giving out mythical Pokemon that were level 100, so I've got these Jirachi, Shaman, Keldeo, and Manaphy, and I've got 2 Darkrai. I actually have 3 Darkrai, one of them is on loan right now. I also have legendary birds on loan, and I think a Mewtwo on loan as well. As seen, real quick to clarify, as seen over here, I do want to have the normal legendaries that you can capture within the game in their respective regional boxes. But again, when it comes to ones that have been passed out by Game Freak via Mystery Gift, I want them to be distinguished in their own box. You know, an idea has just occurred to me now in editing. I might start each region section of the boxes with like a you know, X, Y, or S favorites, you know, Pokemon Legends Arceus favorites, just so I can have the Pokemon that I do have a bit more of a connection with, or Pokemon which were harder to catch like legendaries and stuff, front and center, and I don't have to go digging through a bunch of Pokemon that I'm less familiar with for them. I'm probably going to go ahead and set that up now, but unfortunately I did it after the video, so you're not going to get to see it, but I'm sure you can picture it in your mind's eye. And we've got a level 100 Meloetta here, and then we got some really fun things like a shiny Yveltal, we got Zygarde here, we got a shiny Diancie with a Japanese name for some reason, but it is an event one given out by Game Freak. Maybe it belonged to a you know, someone doing a Pokemon competition or whatever. They do that sometimes. I've got Hooper here, I've got Volcanion, and I've got Melmetal, which is level 100 and has a Gigantamax form. He was just hanging out in my normal Pokemon Go boxes. I don't know why I left him there. And then I have a Pumpkaboo, which was given out around Halloween time in 2014, as you can see by the original trainer name there. We have some Pikachus. They love to give out Pikachus. This is one for having Pokemon Home. This is one for... It's an early purchase bonus for... buying Pokemon Violet, which I feel like is almost a mark of shame given how that game released. But hey, it's pretty playable now if you have a Switch too. I have a Bulbasaur, I have a Squirtle, and I have a Fuecoco. I also have the other 2 starters from Pokemon Violet, but I'm actually using those as part of my Violet playthrough, so I chose Fuecoco in the save file, so I didn't need to use this particular Fuecoco, but I did get Sprigatito and Quaxley as well. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all the rambling I've got in me. This is how I'm currently setting up my Pokemon home. And this has been a small tour, I suppose. I could go through and show you my boxes. Oh my god, that would be a very long video. Let me know if you want me to do that. If you want me to make another video, like a sequel video, where I go through and show you my boxes in the other Pokemon games. Because I do them a little bit differently. In fact, I'll just give you a very quick idea. I'll show you my Pokemon Violet. I won't go through the individual Pokemon, but I'll show you my Pokemon Violet box setup, just so that you get a quick idea of my philosophy regarding sorting Pokemon. So we've got my... oh, we don't have a to sort box. So yeah, this is just my dump box for a bunch of Pokemon I've got from Scarlet and Violet as I've been exploring the world. And I've got some doubles in here for sure. But if we go to the left here, we've got Mystery Gift, which is a bit like the event Pokemon I've been talking about. These are all shinies, that's fun. I've got Terra 7-star raids, Terra 6-star raids, Terra 5-star raids, although I don't know if I'm going to keep this as a distinguished box in itself, because it's not that crazy. It's mostly just so that I can quickly find some level 75s to use in a raid if I need them. I have an amazing stats, which I think I'm going to get rid of. I used to always do this. I used to have amazing stats as like, if it said amazing stats, I'll be like, oh, hey, that's worthwhile for use in raids as well. But I don't know. I know a bit more about IVs and EVs now, and so I'd probably just prefer to have like a perfect IVs box instead. And then these are the transfers that are missing from the Event Legends Plus. So like the shiny Dialga and Palkia, level 100. This is from 2013. These aren't mine originally. My friend gave me these when they decided to quit Pokemon Forever, which they actually didn't quit forever. We have a shiny Rayquaza, which is more recent. We have the other Darkrai I mentioned. We have one of the Gen 5 starters. The other 2 are on my current team that I'm playing through the DLC on. We have a shiny Gengar. We have a Raikou, an Arceus, a Mew, a shiny Zamazenta. We have a legendary Birds. We have some Pokemon Go shinies here. It's not all event legends here. It's some of them are like shinies from Pokemon Go. And we do also have a random Rowlet and Oshawott here as well from Pokemon Legends Arceus. Anyway, there we go. It's not going to be a full... It's not going to be a full tour of this box. Let me know if you do want that, though, and the other games. But maybe I would save that for a future day when I've got more impressive collection to show off. I don't know. Or maybe I could do this every year or something and show you how my collection grows year over year. I don't know. Let me know what you'd like to see. Either way, I'm going to stop rambling now. I'm going to end this video. Thank you for checking this out. I hope you found it interesting, and it wasn't just interesting to me specifically. And I will catch you in whatever I make next.